program, formerly known as food stamps. More than 40 million Americans, over 1 in 10 people in this country, rely on SNAP to get healthy food they need. In my district, over 122,000 people rely on SNAP and will go hungry without these benefits, including my mother. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and House Republicans have made food assistance their next target. The House Republican budget cuts more than $200 billion from SNAP, which means kids, parents, seniors, and our veterans will starve. These SNAP cuts and Republican Medicaid cuts are intended to pay for huge new tax breaks to billionaire donors like Elon Musk. Our communities cannot afford this Republican scheme. Today, we will take a deeper dive into the importance of SNAP and how Democrats will fight back to save food assistance and keep America fed. We will discuss the future of SNAP and our fight to stop these extreme cuts. With that, I yield to our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, to begin today's hearing.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Co-Chair Barragan, for your leadership. And I also want to thank Co-Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Co-Chair Robin Kelly for convening this incredibly important and timely hearing. Let me also thank Chef Caliglio, Stacy Dean, Caitlin Yancey, Cindy Camp, Aaron Carrillo, who are all here to share their experience and their expertise with us in the Congress today. This hearing is about hunger in this country, nutritional assistance, and Republican betrayal of the American people. After promising to lower the high cost of living for everyday Americans, Donald Trump and House Republicans are doing the exact opposite. Costs aren't going down, they are going up. Last month, House Republicans passed the initial stages of their budget, which included the most significant cut to nutritional assistance in American history, all to give trillions of dollars of tax breaks to MAGA billionaires like Elon Musk. Without the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program as it currently exists, approximately 42 million Americans could go hungry, including nearly 17 million children, 5 million seniors, and over 1 million veterans. This reckless Republican budget scheme will hurt vulnerable families and decimate farm country. It will hurt food processors, manufacturers, and mom and pop grocery stores who provide critical support to urban communities, rural communities, and to the heartland of this nation. The Republican SNAP cuts will be devastating, hurting children, families, seniors, people with disabilities, veterans, and weaken our social safety net and economy as a whole. Congressional Democrats are partnering with everyday Americans and advocates all across the country to forcefully push back against this extreme agenda. We're going to stand on the side of the American people. We're going to stand on the side of SNAP today. We're going to stand on the side of SNAP tomorrow. We're going to stand on the side of nutritional assistance for everyday Americans until we eradicate hunger in this country once and for all. As we continue this hearing, we'll now hear a short video that illustrates the importance of the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program and other vital nutritional programs in our great country.
House Republicans want to cut $230 billion from food assistance programs because their billionaire friends have caviar taste. 17 million kids, 5 million seniors, and 1.2 million veterans could be left without food. For the 42 million Americans on SNAP, monthly grocery bills will rise by $260 a month for a family of four. And the economy would shrink by $230 billion, costing farmers and ranchers billions while destroying more than 218,000 jobs. Don't let them take the food off your plate. Save food assistance and feed America.
We'll now hear from Ranking Member Angie Craig.
Thank you so much, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you, Leader Jeffries, for your remarks. We are holding this hearing at an inflection point in America. People across this nation are concerned about the direction we're headed as a country. Costs remain high across the board, from food to housing to health care. In such an evenly divided Congress, where America elected nearly equal parts to this body, the right thing to do would be to reach across the aisle and work on a bipartisan basis. A bipartisan basis that creates opportunity and lowers cost for the American people. But that's not what my Republican colleagues are doing here in this Congress. Instead, House Republicans are proposing we shrink the food economy by cutting the SNAP program by $230 billion, all to pay for a program of tax breaks for billionaires in this country. Is absolutely shameful. Taking food from hungry children, seniors, and veterans, and farm income away from our nation's family farmers. Right now, farmers are dealing with the high cost of doing business. Instead of working together in a bipartisan way to drive down input cost and protect farmers' bottom lines, this administration is threatening tariffs that reduce demand for American-grown food, increase the cost of inputs for farmers, and as a result, raise grocery prices at the grocery store. At a time when people across the country are struggling with the high cost of groceries, SNAP helps American families keep food on the table. These proposed benefit cuts would increase food costs for a typical SNAP household by $175 a month. A family of four, let me repeat this, would see their costs increase by $175 a month, or about $2,100 a year. Not only does SNAP reduce childhood poverty, lower health care costs, and improve education outcomes, but this program helps drive local economies. Every $1 invested in SNAP generates $1.50 in economic activity. Because when you spend $1 on food, you aren't just paying for the food your local farmer grew in your shopping cart. You're helping pay for the salary of the grocery store clerk who stocked the shelves, the trucker who delivered the food to the grocery store, and the manufacturer who made its packaging. This cut would destroy over 200,000 jobs, and grocery stores would close in our communities, particularly our rural communities. When did it become good policy to sow chaos in our economy, slow economic growth, and take opportunities away from American businesses? Who does that help? Not our farmers, who will see net income drop by $23 billion as a result of this proposal. Let me just repeat that. Our family farmers are going to be harmed, as well as hungry children, seniors, and veterans. Not shops on Main Streets are going to be helped. Not struggling families are going to be helped. None of that is going to happen under this Republican plan. Let me be clear, though, about what we're talking about here. $2 a meal. Over $6 a day, just over $6 a day. That's the average SNAP benefit for the American in need. My grandfather was a farm foreman, and in farm country, neighbors help neighbors. Life is tough enough as it is. We shouldn't be forcing American families to go through it on an empty stomach. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. I think the American people need to hear the true cost of giving tax breaks to billionaires, because the choice before Congress is not if we should save $230 billion or not. The choice is whether to make America hungrier and poorer so a handful of billionaires can get richer while the middle class continues to get screwed in this country. We will fight every step of the way to stop this bill. I've spoken about the impact these cuts will have on jobs throughout the supply chain and on farm country. But who better to tell the story of the importance of SNAP for farmers than farmers themselves? Let's listen, and I yield back.
SNAP benefits not only help individuals and families, but they also support local farmers and grocers and businesses.
SNAP is incredibly important to our market. It really supports our local farmers and producers.
We rely on SNAP as part of our sales revenue each year.
SNAP dollars do make a big difference of our sales.
A significant portion of my farm's annual revenue comes from SNAP sales.
SNAP is really important in my community for farmers markets, and for co-ops.
It helps us reach customers that we wouldn't normally be able to reach.
Members of my community can access local nutritious cheese and milk because I accept SNAP.
Every dollar spent in SNAP generates an economic activity within our communities.
So we need to protect these benefits. They support local farmers and producers, and they support local people.
We strongly urge Congress to fully fund these nutrition benefit programs, keep this type of revenue going for farmers.
Please continue to support SNAP benefits.
We want this program to stay.
Continuing SNAP benefits is an investment in the future.
Everybody has the right to eat high quality, good quality, nutrient-dense food.
I want to start by thanking our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and our Steering and Policy Committee co-chairs, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Nanette Barragan, and Robin Kelly, for bringing this important hearing forward. As we know, and what we're here to discuss, is that SNAP is a lifeline for millions of our neighbors, for moms, dads, kids, seniors, veterans. And as we have just heard in that video, it is also a pillar of our entire food economy. Our first witness today brings deep insight into the business of feeding our country. He knows the challenges we face, and plus, he knows the importance of making really great food. Tom Colicchio is the son of a union organizer and a school lunchroom worker. Raised in a home where dinner was shared together every night, Tom went on to become a world-renowned chef, to own award-winning restaurants, and a fierce advocate for food security. From flipping burgers as a teenager in Elizabeth, New Jersey, to running New York's top restaurants and serving as the head judge on Top Chef, Tom embodies the American dream. And that's what we're really here in defense of today. And Tom is fighting for everyone's right to have a fair shot at their own American dream. And that starts with meeting our most basic human need, the need for food. Tom has a lifelong appreciation for the importance of food and a fundamental understanding that hunger in this country is a policy choice. The GOP budget guts food assistance for parents who are already struggling to fill lunch boxes in the morning and to put food on the table at night. They are taking meals from our seniors and our babies, all to hand tax cuts and corrupt contracts to billionaire donors. Republicans campaigned on lowering the cost of groceries, and now they're slashing the very services that keep those costs down. It is shameful, and it makes this fight all the more urgent. Chef, we thank you for being here today. We thank you for a commitment to a hunger-free future that our children deserve, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark, and thank you all for inviting me here today. So, yes, I am a chef. I own restaurants in New York and Las Vegas. And as a chef for about 40 years in New York City, often we were called upon to help raise money for various organizations. And I think because I feed people who can afford it, and I really believe that food should be accessible and affordable for all, I tend to gravitate towards those organizations that helped with hunger issues. Organizations like Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, City Harvest, New York City Food Bank, God's Love We Deliver, Meals on Wheels. And during that time, I thought I knew a bit about hunger. But then about 15 years ago, my wife, and I think you left this out of the introduction, Congresswoman Clark. My wife and I helped produce a film. She directed a film called Place at the Table. And that film illustrated hunger in America. And we know that in some of the research that we started doing, we found out very quickly that people are hungry in this country not because of drought, not because of war, not because of famine. They're hungry in this country because we don't have the political will to make sure people don't go hungry. And those words were not my words. Those were Congressman McGovern's words. He was in the film. So soon after the film, there was a piece of media in 1968 that was on CBS called Hunger in America. And that brought hunger directly into the living rooms of the American public. Soon after that, Senators Dole and McGovern got together, modernized the food stamp program, turned it into SNAP, modernized the school lunch program, and we pretty much ended hunger in this country until the 80s. We know what happened in the 80s. Everything changed. It all became about, government doesn't have that role anymore, and leave this up to churches, leave this up to charity. Didn't work. We saw hunger just increase overnight. So soon after the film, I co-founded an organization called Food Policy Action. We actually created a scorecard and graded members in Congress on how they voted around food issues, hunger, but also farming, clean water, and things like that. And frequently, I was up on the Hill, meeting members and trying to get them to see things our way, the way we all see things. Most of those meetings I had were with Republicans. And back then they were receptive. And they were receptive to the idea where healthcare was impacted by hunger. All right? Nutrition outcomes impact healthcare. If we want to bring the cost of healthcare down, we want to make sure people have nutritious food. Talked about national security. And at the time, it was about 25% of the recruits that showed up to fight for armed services would wash out because they weren't fit to fight. So it's a national security issue. That definitely resonated. We talked about business, the effect that it had on local businesses, especially farmers. Talked about how $1 created $1.50 in economic activity. And these were all, at the time, very, very receptive to these ideas. It's all changed. But what I like to say to my friends here on the Democratic Party, we've always focused on protecting SNAP. My suggestion is if Republicans cut SNAP by $230 billion, when we take this House back, and we will take this House back, we don't go back to $230. Let's go back to $330. Let's increase this. Let's make sure more people can eat, because when we see inflation rise, food stamps don't cover it anymore. SNAP doesn't cover it because it doesn't rise with inflation. So we need to increase this. We need to increase for all the reasons that we know it works. This keeps people healthy. It keeps people active. The idea that there's some kid out there that is going to show up in school hungry and they're not going to learn. They're not going to achieve, their goals and their capacity. And that kid out there may do something great. And we're letting that just kind of go by. We're not looking at the human sort of effect that hunger has. The effect that it has on parents when they struggle to feed their children and they can't. And we also know that these benefits don't go to people who are lazy and not working. The majority of people who receive SNAP benefits have at least one member of the family working. So let's be crystal clear. The proposed cuts to Social Security, Medicaid, and SNAP are for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to give massive tax cuts to corporations and the very wealthy. But let's for a second entertain the idea of reducing SNAP. But not the benefits. You know, we're the most wealthy country in the history of this world, and we should aspire to having fewer people on public assistance. But attacking benefits won't cut it. Food prices are up. The housing costs are through the roof. Insurance is up. The price of a dozen eggs is equal to an hour of labor. Cutting benefits is just another form of cruelty. So yes, I agree, our goal should be to have fewer people on SNAP. But allow me the audacity to make a suggestion. I want fewer people on SNAP. Well, if we want to do that, then businesses need to pay a living wage. $7.25 an hour minimum wage all but guarantees the need for public assistance. Let's take it a step further. If corporations will not pay a living wage to their employees and they have to rely on SNAP to survive, then they should have a tax levied against them. As a party, we cannot wait for the Overton window to shift. We must fling it wide open. We need to engage directly with the American public. You know, during the pandemic, I think we all saw the news clips of lines of cars lined up for hours. Well, if you look closely at those videos, there were BMWs there, there were Mercedes there, there were even some Teslas there, right? Now, these people never thought they would find themselves in an hour-long line to feed their families. So my hope was that we would have a more empathetic country, a country where people realize that many of us are just a circumstance away from needing assistance. And I agree that we should aspire to make America healthy again. But by cutting vital nutrition programs for children, seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans, unfortunately, will only make us less healthy. It will destroy farming communities, it will hurt businesses, it will not strengthen our national security, it will not improve educational outcomes, and it will not secure our future. Thank you.
We recognize Ranking Member Governor McGovern.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Tom, for your testimony and for your tireless advocacy to end hunger. You know, as you pointed out, America is the richest country in the history of the world, and yet we have 47 million of our fellow citizens who are hungry. That's a scandal. No one in our country should go without food. Food ought to be viewed as a fundamental human right. But fighting hunger isn't just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. Hunger costs us dearly in lost productivity at work, in kids who struggle to learn, in seniors who end up in the emergency room. Hunger hurts us all. And the benefit, as was pointed out, is a little over, on average, $2 per person per meal. And the Republicans want to cut that? What a rotten thing to do. When's the last time Elon Musk or Donald Trump have been at a grocery store? They probably think corn is grown in a vending machine. But I'm proud to welcome our next witness, Stacey Dean, a true champion in the fight to make sure that everyone in this country has enough to eat. Stacey is Executive Director of the Global Food Institute at George Washington University, where she focuses on how healthy food can improve lives and protect the planet. She previously served as Deputy Undersecretary at USDA's Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services, where she expanded access to nutritious food for millions of Americans. She's also a fierce advocate for our farms and for our farmers. And before her time at USDA, she led food assistance policy at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a nonprofit, nonpartisan research group. Stacey knows exactly how important SNAP is and how Republican cuts would hurt kids, families, seniors, and people with disabilities. Thank you so much for being here today, and you are recognized.
Thank you, Congressman McGovern, for that really warm introduction and for the opportunity to be with you here today to talk about SNAP. SNAP is our nation's most effective and important tool to help families meet their basic food needs and to fight hunger. SNAP helped an average of 41 million people to buy groceries in 2024. That's about 1 in 8 Americans or 1 in 5 children in this country. Participants used their benefits, which we've all remarked is $2 per person per meal, to buy groceries at more than 250,000 food retail outlets. And while SNAP's fundamental purpose is to help families, older Americans, individuals with disabilities to afford a basic healthy diet, it also promotes other goals. SNAP protects participants from hardship and hunger. Studies show that SNAP participation reduces food insecurity by as much as 30% and even more amongst children. It's a powerful anti-poverty tool. By providing resources for food, it frees up families' income for other purposes like rent and utilities or childcare. And boosting monthly income means reduces poverty. SNAP is linked to improve outcomes for education, economic security, and self-sufficiency. It's also associated with improved health outcomes and lower medical costs. It helps family afford healthier foods and is linked to better health outcomes over the long run when individuals received it as children. SNAP's a crucial support for workers, and I think this is worth spending a minute on. Most SNAP participants who can work do, but many of the jobs common among SNAP participants are service jobs or sales jobs, often pay very low wages and don't offer regular hours at work. So SNAP helps to fill in the gaps for workers with low pay or inconsistent pay because of hours. And it also helps families to afford food when they're in between jobs and looking for work. Now, I'm a really big fan of SNAP, as you can probably tell, but even I know there are ways to improve it, much like Mr. Colicchio. Top amongst my list would be equipping USDA with the tools it needs to stop criminals from stealing SNAP benefits from client CPT cards, as well as to restore the lapsed authority for states to replace stolen benefits, something I know many of you championed. I want to close with just a reflection on the House-passed budget resolution and its potential implications for SNAP. The resolution, as you all have, as speakers have already noted, calls for $230 billion in cuts in SNAP over the next 10 years. That's more than a 20% cut in projected spending. And it's worth noting that the SNAP cuts are twice the size of the terrible Medicaid proposed cuts when taken considered as a share of the underlying program spending. Those cuts are also concerning, but deeply concerning. But I wanted to call out the scale of the SNAP cuts. It's not possible to achieve this level of cut without some combination of cutting food benefits, which are already quite modest, cutting eligibility from lots of people, millions, or some combination of both. SNAP cuts of this magnitude would clearly have a dramatic impact on millions of struggling Americans who count on this program every day to put food on the table, as well as for the grocers, farmers, food manufacturers, and all of those individuals in the food supply chain who serve them. I'll just stop there and say I really look forward to the opportunity to take your questions.
We'll now move to questions, and I recognize Ranking Member DeLauro.
I have a loud voice. Okay. So it's wonderful to see you and wonderful to have worked with you over the years. But most of all, not only your testimony, but your fierce and persistent advocacy for the middle class, for the working class, for the vulnerable. And as you know, they are all struggling to pay their bills. As President Trump's cost of living crisis gets worse, so many children hungry as families struggle to pay their rent and to put food on the table. I would just say this, if we wanted to decrease the hunger rate in this country, let's go back to the child tax credit, which already did, when it was in effect, reduce of hunger by about 25% in this country. The United States has an abundance of food, no shortage, and no one should be hungry in the United States of America. No one. We have the food. Elon Musk, President Trump are putting the programs that help lower-income Americans on the chopping block in order to pay for, yes, a huge tax break for billionaires and corporations. The consequences of their attacks on food stamps, our nation's most effective anti-hunger program, are as simple as they are dire. Our neighbors and our children will go hungry. And I've stopped mentioning the word food security. It's about people in this nation going hungry. That is the issue. Stacey, let me start with a question for you. One proposal that the House Republicans are considering is forcing states to pay for a portion of food stamp benefits. How would that impact state budgets, and how might it affect the people who count on food assistance?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Well, there are no details available at this point about the reported concept of a state match. I think a state match requirement would destroy SNAP's powerful and effective structure. For more than 50 years, we have viewed hunger as a national problem that requires a national solution. And that's why SNAP benefits are paid entirely with federal funds, while states share in the administrative costs. And it's why SNAP is the most, after unemployment insurance, the most power counter-cyclical tools during a downturn. Its benefits flow to where they're needed. States face balanced budget requirements, so if they are forced to put up funds in order to keep SNAP dollars flowing to their state, it will have to come from either raising taxes or cutting other benefits, goods, and services, which is a terrible zero-sum game for them. Many would likely be unable to put up their share, which mean that they would draw down a smaller SNAP program. And of course, then the program would, when there are downturns and states are struggling with resources, the program would not expand and respond the way that it does in this very powerful way. So it's deeply concerning to me, and that a match would be on the table.
Yeah, and that's incredible because everything is being matched. We're dealing with education, with nutrition, and I don't know where the view is that states have the wherewithal to be able to address these serious issues. Tom?
Currently, I believe there are 10 states, all Republican-led states, that cut their summer feeding programs. I don't think they could be trusted.
Amen. Amen. And now you just spoke up, Tom. Let me ask the next question for you. A chef, and a great chef, I might add, who has spent a large part of your life, as you pointed out, feeding people. That's what you do. Can you talk about the importance of having the access to nutritious food? What does that mean for someone's overall well-being?
Right. Well, the problem that we have in this country is that, calories are cheap and nutrition's expensive. If you want to feed your family healthy food, it costs more than feeding them, over-processed, foods that are full of sugar and fat. And so this is why SNAP is so important, especially programs like the Double Bucks program, where you can go to a farmer's market and you get double your purchasing power. So if you spend $40, you get a coupon for another $40. And also the benefit of that is people eat healthier food because people want healthier food. They can't afford it. The other benefit of that is that money goes directly to farmers. It doesn't go to a large corporation. It goes directly to farmers. These are programs that need to be protected.
Just one point, and then I will yield back. The fact is that people are always complaining about food stamp recipients of what they spend their money on. The allocation is so low that at the beginning of the month you can buy eggs and milk and juice, etc. At the end of the month, because the money has run out, you are forced to purchase soda and chips, etc., which are empty calories for people. So we need to understand that people want to feed their kids and they want to feed them nutritious food. Thank you both very, very much for your unbelievable work in this area.
Thank you.
Yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Takuda.
Thank you, Chair. Stacey, you and I have had many discussions on the inadequacy of the Thrifty Food Plan, and now House Republicans have targeted the most recent update to the Thrifty Food Plan, which determines SNAP benefits and helps to address the true costs of scarcity and accessibility of food in our rural communities like my hometown in Hawaii and small towns across this country. Targeting those updates would hurt these very communities that we love, where working families depend on SNAP to put food on their tables. By going after SNAP, House Republicans are setting up rural communities to starve. Can you explain for us how the USDA made the update to TFP and what reversing it would mean for people who rely on SNAP benefits to keep food on their tables?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. Good to see you. So the 2018 bipartisan Farm Bill directed USDA to do a reevaluation of the Thrifty Food Plan. That had always been at the Secretary's discretion, but under that new law, USDA is now required to do it every 5 years. Secretary Vilsack instructed us to move forward. The law was very clear. We had to consider 4 particular components: current food prices, what Americans typically eat, the latest dietary guidelines, and nutrients in foods. We undertook a robust, data-driven analysis, a careful, considered approach. We stayed very consistent with the way that the Thrifty Food Plan had been analyzed in the past. The primary change that we made, there were a few assumptions made, was we used much better price data, the store scanner data. And so we had a much better understanding of what actual food prices were. As a result of that change, it It resulted in the first permanent increase in SNAP benefits other than food inflation in 45 years, the first adjustment in 45 years. And as a result, even then, it was fairly modest. SNAP benefits increased by an average of $36 per person per month, or $1.19 per person per day, or 40 cents per meal. That was the impact in fiscal 22. We felt that these resources were much needed by households, and we're equipping them with the resources they need to purchase healthy foods and to support better nutrition.
Thank you. It was definitely 45 years too long, and we need to continue these TFP updates for sure. Tom, you'd appreciate this. When I went home the other week, a kahu, kind of a religious leader, told me that when the opu, your belly, is full, there is life. And you, as a chef, you keep opus full, you keep bellies full with the fruits of our farmers' labor. And while we know that the SNAP benefits that we're talking about today can't be used directly at restaurants like yours, they are still a vital part of our food economy. So let's talk for a second. Can you tell me what taking out $230 billion out of our food economy and ecosystem would mean for our producers, our farmers, our ranchers, processors, grocers, even our restaurateurs? What would that result in if we removed $230 billion from our food economy?
Sure. Well, if you multiply that by the $1.50, you'll see exactly how much money it takes out of the economy. And we're going to see farms go out of business. We're going to see grocery stores go out of business, especially the mom and pops. The big stores will survive it. We're going to see people go hungry. And what we're going to see once people start going hungry, we're going to see crime increase. We're going to see people get desperate when they're hungry and they can't feed their families. We'll see families break up because of it. And so, yes, the effect that it's going to have on the economies and economy in every single state. There are farms and small farms in every single state in this country. So it's not just going to hurt, a handful of states. So farmers are going to have to do, this is when you see farming communities start to go under, suicide rates go up. And so we're talking about some serious stuff here. It's not just a matter of bellies not being full. This is just decimating people's lifestyles and incomes. And people who farm, they typically don't farm because they think they're going to make a lot of money. They love the land. They want to be stewards of the land, and they want to produce nutritious foods that people can enjoy and people can thrive on. And if you cut that, what do we have as a country? I mean, we started out as an agrarian country, and I think that we still have that strong feeling. And if that goes, you talk about what really America is all about. It's not about having farms go under. It's not about children going to bed hungry at night. It's not about parents having to skip a meal because they don't have enough to feed their kids. It's not about seniors who got to make decisions between medication or food. This is who we are. And this really isn't who we are. And it shouldn't be. And so it's not only about the economy. It's about really who we are as a people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom. Cutting SNAP cuts our lifelines.
Absolutely.
And clearly, it truly cuts at what it means to be an American. So thank you both for your service and your testimony here. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Tokuda. And thank you to Tom and Stacey for your leadership, for your advocacy, for your expertise, and for really shining an important spotlight on the devastating cuts to this food assistance and what that would really mean for Americans across the country. Because there are real people behind that number, 40 million Americans who count on SNAP. People like Caitlin, Cindy, and Aaron, who we'll hear from shortly. There are friends, there are family members, sometimes even our coworkers. There are seniors, parents, people overcoming disabilities, and more than 1 million of our veterans. We want to bring their voices into the Capitol. So we asked people who have counted on SNAP to share their stories, and here's what they had to say.
I want to talk to you about why food stamps are so important in our community.
I know from experience the foundational difference that having food assistance in the form of SNAP or food stamps can make in the lives of struggling families.
I received SNAP when I was rebuilding my life after leaving an abusive relationship.
I'll never forget, 9 years ago, I had lost my job and benefits only to find out I was pregnant. I was on SNAP for about a year, and without SNAP, it would have been hard for me to sustain a healthy pregnancy.
When I was younger, I received food stamps from my family It's the only way we could get by. It was such a common thing, and people that I knew, that when a family didn't receive food stamps, I thought that was such a sign of woe.
The 3 years of SNAP benefits that I and my 2 children received enabled me to stop worrying about where our next meal was going to come from. We were food secure enough for me to focus on going to college as a way out of poverty.
If SNAP benefits are cut, I won't be able to provide enough healthy and nutritious food for my children.
SNAP was my lifeline. And for millions of families, it means the difference between life and death.
We shouldn't cut SNAP. We should strengthen it.
So I'm urging you, strengthen and preserve SNAP. Do not cut it.
Please don't take it away from us.
Because of this essential program, I was able to build a better future, not just for myself, but for my children.
I'm calling on Congress to do the right thing.
To not cut this vital program that saves the lives of so many individuals in my community.
Congressman Bishop for an introduction.
As that video showed, Americans from all walks of life count on SNAP to get the food they need. 3 of the tens of millions of Americans who've counted on food assistance are with us today. Our first witness on this panel is Caitlin Yancey. Hailing from a proud military family, Caitlin served our country in the United States Navy as an aviation electronics technician. Today, she's an advocate for fellow veterans at the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. She's also a hardworking mom who once counted on SNAP food benefits and the GI Bill to make sure that she could care for her kids. Many veterans and their families share Caitlin's story. There are over 1 million veterans who count on SNAP food benefits to put food on the table. Funding for food assistance should not be political. Americans should not go to bed hungry. Veterans should not have to worry that we will not have their backs in their time of need, like they had ours when they served. That's why House Democrats are fighting to protect food assistance and ensure that kids, parents, seniors, and veterans don't go hungry. Caitlin, thank you not only for your service to our country, but also your commitment to an entire generation of veterans and their families. Please share your experience with your fellow Americans. You're now recognized for that purpose.
Thank you so much, Congressman Bishop. And thank you to all the members who sit here today for allowing me the opportunity to share how the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program has impacted my family and myself. My name is Caitlin Yancey. I am a wife of a Navy veteran and the mother of 4 beautiful children, and currently serve as the Director of Membership Programs at Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. From November 2017 to December 2018, my family utilized SNAP food benefits. I was a single mother as my husband and I had separated, and he had moved away to Texas. My oldest was 5 and in the maintenance phase of his leukemia treatment, and I had a 1-year-old daughter. I was in college at the time working to obtain my bachelor's degree with my GI Bill. My expenses were not extreme. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't buy expensive items. But given the cost of daycare, utilities, housing, food, driving back and forth to my son's chemo appointments, and other expenses I had to pay for to take care of my family, it all added up and was almost always more than was coming in. My GI Bill's basic allowance for housing and some support from my husband were the only income that I was receiving at the time, and it did not cover all the expenses that I had every month. I was forced to put things on a credit card many times so that I could ensure my family's needs were met. This credit card got harder and harder to pay off, and eventually was no longer an option to use as I had maxed it out, putting my children and myself in a dangerous situation. My children are my everything. If I ever had to choose between giving myself a little or ensuring my children had full bellies, they would always come first. Growing up, there was a huge stigma attached to government assistance programs. So when I finally leveled with myself that it was time to seek assistance because I had to ensure that my son had healthy food while he finished treatment, I felt like a failure. Since then, I have been extremely humbled by how important it is for SNAP benefits to be available to those who are food insecure. Knowing my children were well fed made it possible for me to focus on my studies. Having healthy food to eat myself made it easier for me to be a good mother. SNAP made it possible for food to not be a stress on my life. Without this assistance, I would have had to quit school, and I never would have walked in the doors of my university's student veteran organization, which opened up the doors for what has now become a career in veteran advocacy. Following the military, I felt the well-known struggle of transition. I had no idea who I was, and I always felt out of place. It wasn't until I found our school's veteran program that I felt that I belonged. It was like coming up for fresh air after being held underwater. I dove right in and almost immediately became the secretary of our chapter and then president the following year. This set me on a path to finding IAVA and getting started on their policy and advocacy team in August of 2019. Since then, I have testified before the House Veteran Affairs Committee several times, participated in countless meetings with congressional staffers and members of the House and Senate, and led teams of other IAVA members on the Hill to tell their own stories and enact real change for the veteran community. According to Feeding America, 1 in 9 veterans is food insecure, and 1.2 million low-income veterans utilize SNAP. In IAVA's 2022 survey, 21% of our members had difficulty covering basic necessary expenses with their monthly income. It's programs like SNAP that bridge that gap and help to alleviate the stress of food insecurity when the amount coming in doesn't quite stretch as far as we think. This past month, IAVA held its Cavalry Week, where we bring members from all over the country and help them to tell their stories on Capitol Hill. It's an amazing program that has given me the opportunity to meet some of the most inspiring veterans. In addition to being a mother, advocating for veterans is what I was put on this earth to do. It fulfills that lack of purpose I felt when I drove out the front gate for the last time at NAS Oceana in 2014. It makes Airman Hetrick, my maiden name, proud to know that even though I was terrified joining the military and embarking on a journey that I didn't originally plan for, I now sit before members of our country's leadership telling my family story in order to put a face to one of the programs that made sitting here possible. None of this would have happened had I dropped out of school when money was tight and gotten a job just to put food on the table, unable to utilize the GI Bill benefit I got in return for service to my country. I am proud of who I have become, and benefits like SNAP were a crucial part of helping me get to where I am today. Thank you.
Congresswoman Hayes for an introduction.
Thank you, Caitlin, for your service and for sharing your story with us. I want you to know that we are fighting for veterans like you to be able to put food on the table and support your family. You deserve it. It's the very least for your service to our country. It's been made clear today by the witnesses who have come before us that SNAP is a lifeline for people from all walks of life. People like our next witness, Cindy Camp. Cindy's a mother and a grandmother who lives in Baltimore. She cares full-time for her brother, who lives with significant disabilities. After the pandemic, Cindy was forced off Medicaid and lost her access to the affordable health care she relied on. As the cost of basic necessities like food and energy went up, Cindy had to rely on SNAP benefits to ensure she could continue putting food on the table for herself and her loved ones. I spoke to Cindy briefly before this hearing, and I said, "Is there anything that you want me to know?" She said, "I worked my whole life to get off of assistance, to not have to turn back and rely on it again. I don't want to have to need public benefits." I know Cindy's story because it's my own story. Nobody wants to be on public benefits. If House Republicans succeed in cutting SNAP, caregivers like Cindy would lose the food assistance that helps them make ends meet and feed their families. We will not let that happen. And we want everyone to hear Cindy's story and understand the impact that this has on people and families. Cindy, you're now recognized.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Camp, and I live in Baltimore. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a family caregiver, and a proud member of Moms Rising. I apologize if I get emotional right now, because these are just words, but this is what I live. For the past 7 years, I've stepped up as a sandwich generation caregiver for my family. My brother, Leon Wallace, is disabled and he's homebound. He needs support with his daily needs. For a long time, my mother provided that care, but now she is nearly 90 and needs care for herself. So I care for them both. And people are oftentimes saying that we should put him in a nursing home. But she's 89, and if we do, she won't make it. At the same time, my daughter is struggling with her mental health. So I'm also caring for my 3 grandkids, ages 7, 9, and 13. And I apologize, everybody. They are living with me while their mom seeks treatment. And my grandkids are a blessing, and I'm proud to step up for them. And I would like to thank you for this chance for sharing my story. My family will always come first. For a while, I couldn't work because of my family caregiving responsibilities. During that time, I relied on SNAP to buy groceries. Without SNAP, I don't know how I would survive. I can't even imagine it. I go to the market, and I just start sometimes because I'm trying to figure out what I can afford. If I ever tried to grocery shop for 3 growing kids, you know it's expensive. If you've ever tried, you know it's expensive, especially now as cost continues to skyrocket. Making sure everyone in my household gets 3 meals a day is a huge challenge. I'm terrified for my family each time I read that Republicans are threatening to slash the SNAP benefits we rely on to put food on our table. I don't know how we would make that happen. Sometimes I talk to my mom, and she said that could never happen. They would never allow that. And I said, Mom, it's happening. SNAP is our saving grace. My daughter receives $875 a month in SNAP benefits for my grandkids. Without those funds, I have no idea how the kids would eat, period. We already don't make it through the month as it is. I'm already struggling to provide the fresh, healthy foods I know they need to grow and thrive. I haven't bought eggs in a very long time. We rely on cheap processed foods and lean food banks to help fill in the gaps. If Republicans succeed in cutting SNAP, that would be nothing short of a crisis for my family. That thought keeps me up at night. It's not just SNAP. They're not just threatening Medicaid and disability, which are critical for my brother and my mom, and the healthy lunches my grandkids eat at school. It breaks my heart to think any elected leaders would allow grandkids to go hungry so billionaires can get yet another tax break. Our kids' basic needs should be more important than whether Elon Musk can buy another private jet. It's frustrating when politicians push a narrative that those who need SNAPs are lazy and don't work. I've worked very hard, so many jobs, to put food on the table. So that hurts when I hear that. And I hear those statements, that really, really hurts. That is out of touch with the reality of families like mine are facing. It hurts those of us who can't work, whether we are caring for family or dealing with health crisis. Cutting SNAP or adding more burdensome work requirements will cause enormous harm to the most vulnerable members of our society, including children and the elderly. It's hard enough to qualify for SNAP as it is. These cuts will take critical resources away when they're needed the most. I want to thank the committee for standing up for families like mine. We all need to speak out against these cruel cuts. SNAP is critical for our families and our economy. It must be protected. Thank you.
Gassar for an introduction.
We're here today because House Republicans want to cut off food for families like yours, Cindy, and that's so cruel. And what makes it even more cruel and corrupt is they want to cut off food for working families because they want to take that money to pay for tax breaks for billionaires. They want to steal the money that families use to afford to eat so they can give it out to people like Elon Musk in the form of more corrupt government contracts and tax breaks. What people watching at home need to know is that Elon Musk gets $8 million a day today in federal government contracts. But they want to cut the $2 a meal that a working class American gets. on SNAP to feed themselves. SNAP isn't just a lifeline for folks like you, Cindy. It's the difference between children going to bed hungry or not. Children make up more than 40% of the people receiving SNAP today. Right now, we have far too many billionaires in power who care more about buying their next jet more than whether people can put food on the table. Way too many ultra-rich people running the Republican Party who care more about buying their next yacht than they care about whether you can pay your utility bill. Way too many billionaires with their campaign contributions who care about their next trip to space more than they care about whether you can pay for the rent or the mortgage or medicine. Our next witness, Mr. Aaron Carrillo, is a native of El Paso, Texas, El Chuco, one of the greatest cities in this country that really just produces some of the best Americans. I'm just so proud that you are here. He's now a successful healthcare leader. But growing up, her family relied on SNAP to make sure kids were fed. If House Republicans get their way, then the kids growing up today, the Aarons growing up today, could go hungry so that big corporations and Republican mega donors can get more rich. Aaron, I really want to thank you for being here today, and you're recognized.
Thank you, Congressman. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Carrillo, and I am indeed from El Paso. Growing up in a Latino and Vietnamese household meant everything was about the numbers. Numbers was logic, numbers was life. For me, that really just meant I counted a lot. See, by the time I was 18, we moved 21 times. Now, before you ask, no, we're not military. It was just following my mother and her hard work. Every move meant she made more, got to spend more time, and continued to grow, except for 2 moves. You see, my mom grew up with a lift yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. And as a child of 2 military parents, she definitely did that. She worked 80-hour weeks, running on only one guilty pleasure, a venti white chocolate mocha with 2 shots of espresso, hold the whip, every morning. She managed our schedules, taught us where we could help, and continued to make sure our home grew and was ran. To me, my mother was my superhero, like the 2 counterparts that I have at the table today. She was invincible in my 12-year-old mind, but every superhero has their kryptonite. My mom was constantly running on fumes, and yet she continued to work. Even when she was sick, she continued to work. Even when it led to surgery, she tried to continue to work until she had nothing left to give. And slowly watched everything around us begin to disappear. Her job, then our home, and then our car while we were sitting in the Walmart parking lot just trying to get groceries. We were left with nothing, and for the first time, that lift yourself by your bootstraps mentality, the straps broke. She had no choice, and she leaned on family in our community. While money ran out, my mom continued to look for a job. We moved again, just like normal, another move. Except this time, it was with family. This time, it was a new school. This time, we had nothing but each other. My mom found a job. It was 45 minutes away, but we didn't have a car. She made it work. But that meant 45 minutes every day that she drove, 45 minutes every day that she had to wait to see her children, 45 minutes every day that we had to pay for gas. She had no other option. The one thing that she never wanted to do, she had to do. We went to the SNAP office. At the time, we called it EBT, food stamps. We received $127 per month. It was a mixture of relief and shame on my mother's face, and the only solitude I could give her was the opportunity of me going through the cashier line and me handing the card. I learned at a young age to love numbers, because it was my responsibility to make sure the dollars stretched. All it was a year and a half. My mom did not want to stay on the program. She did not want to be what they quoted a freeloader. We moved into her childhood home, built in 1864. No heat, no AC. The electricity caught on fire from time to time, but it was a house with a roof over our heads. In 8th grade, I moved to 3 different schools. And it was my mother that ensured that though I was advanced in one school and they didn't have the program at the other, I sat 4'7" in a class of 12th graders to ensure that I continued my education at the level I was at. She made sure I didn't go without in every way she possibly could. Now, me today. I work in healthcare. I love numbers. I'm a market manager of strategy, an executive position, and I'll toot my own horn, I'm pretty young for the position I have. I love planning and executing on 5-year plans to expand care and services within my community that right now is suffering half the national average of physicians. We are the 6th largest population in Texas, the 22nd largest population in the United States, and people don't even know we have mountains in our city. Every day, I see how vital food assistance is for overall health. For kids to have the drive and hunger that everyone talks about every day, they can't be hungry. SNAP helps alleviate the burden of poverty and reduce food insecurity to prevent devastating health outcomes or immense healthcare costs. And without SNAP, my path would be entirely different. One thing I didn't share was my mom was all about the things that were free when we could get them. And in Kansas at the time, I got an associate's in precision machining. If there wasn't SNAP, I would still have a good job. She would have made sure of that. I would have been a machinist, but I wouldn't have to be anywhere near where she was because she ensured for me and for my brother that we continued to grow. Thank you.
For a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Aaron, thank you for sharing your story. I know your mom is proud of you. I'd like to start with a question to Caitlin. After serving in the Navy, what was it like to return to civilian life, and how did you go about establishing your life and your career outside of the service?
That's a complicated question. So immediately after leaving the military, my husband and I moved to Dallas, Texas. He wanted to go to the University of North Texas, and I got a job within less than a month. I am not the type of person that can sit still. Maternity leave was absolutely awful for me in some cases. I mean, I enjoy my babies, but it was intense. And so I definitely got right to work right after it. Not really focusing on on the transition struggles at all. It wasn't until my son was sick 2 years later, when my son was diagnosed with leukemia, that there was a break and there was a breath of air that I could take, because I was working and going to school before that, that everything kind of set in, and I realized I didn't have friends. I had my son and I had my husband, and that was it. And that's when everything kind of just broke down for me, and I felt that lack of connecting, lack of lack of belonging that I referenced in my testimony, and why the student veteran organization at my university was so important for me to find. So I definitely landed very quickly, but once I was able to take a breath, that landing wasn't so soft.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your service to our country and for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Cindy, I had a question for you. Can you talk with us? Your story about your commitment to your family is just so moving for all of us. Can you tell us, as a caregiver, a mother, a grandmother, can you tell us the impact that SNAP had on your life and your family's life?
Well, it's really a burden, because Mom being older, the kids being younger, my brother being disabled, they really don't understand how critical the SNAP is. Mom does, but the kids don't. So they don't understand what hunger is like. I mean, because I make it look easy, I do my best, and I work really hard to provide to make sure that they have. So if we lose SNAP, things are definitely going to change. And honestly, I've been trying to prepare them for that mentally. I've been speaking to them a lot about waste and honest, if I'm quite honest, about snacks. Hey, I didn't get snacks, so sometimes snacks may not be provided, or also thinking about how to make meals and make them stretch, maybe soup and other things that'll stretch a whole lot longer. But mentally, I've been really preparing them because the loss of that those SNAP benefits will really be critical to our household.
Thank you for sharing. Yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Co-Chair, Congressman Frost, for a question.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Sydney, for your answer and for the care that you show to your family and your community. I think the true test of the character of a nation is, do we see the world through the eyes of the most vulnerable? Do we see the world through the eyes of working people or through the eyes of billionaires? And that's what the Republican Party wants us to do right now, see the world through the eyes of people like Elon Musk. They want to cut more than $200 a month for families in terms of SNAP nutritional assistance. If that cut was passed into law, how would that impact your family? Would you still have enough money to put food on the table?
No, I wouldn't. Like I said, I honestly don't know what we would do other than maybe going to food banks if I could, just trying to find other resources that we would have. But at this point, a $200 cut in those SNAPs, we wouldn't make it. We don't make it now with what we have. And I work, and I still have to provide food with my income. So that's just a help. That would never last a month. So at the end of the month, I think I make it maybe to the third week if I'm really, really careful. But other than that, I'm still supplementing along the way. So there's no way that we can live off of less than what we get right now.
Thank you so much. That's stark and telling, and another reason why we can't allow these Republican cuts to go into effect. Behind every number, there's a human, there's a family, there are people. Aaron, I want to turn to you. How do you think your childhood would have been different if your family didn't have SNAP as a lifeline?
At the time when we got SNAP, my mom was balancing so many things in the fire. The fact that I can remember us working together to scrounge the change in the couch to get gas for her to just go to work to get money, that cycle, that young, was just the understanding of being resourcefulness. It wasn't that we were weaker. It wasn't that we didn't have. It was the fact that we were going to figure it out. So not having SNAP at the time as a child, for me, would have just really weighed on my mother more. She wouldn't have let it affect us. That was her superpower. She would find any way. I get asked a lot, like, how do I know how to do different things that I know how to do? And it's because of these situations that I'm able to do what I do on a day-to-day basis. And it's because of her.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing your testimony on this, too. It's obvious that these Republican cuts, the fastest growing class in our country isn't the middle class, it's the working poor. And these cuts will be devastating for working families across the entire country. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Frost. And Congresswoman Brown for a question.
It's about providing people a path to a better future and extending a helping hand for those who have fallen on hard times. But it's also about keeping people healthy. SNAP includes several incentive-based programs that allow SNAP dollars to go further when purchasing fresh and healthy foods. Aaron, as someone who has worked in healthcare, who works in healthcare today, can you talk about how SNAP and incentive-based programming are important to the overall community health? Bless you.
I think looking at El Paso, we have one of the largest food banks in the United States with the most daily visits by our different communities within our city. When we're looking at healthcare and the stability of being able to eat and a nutritious diet, chronic illness only grows with a lack of nutrition. Type 2 diabetes affects my community in particular quite a bit, and yet some of the things that we hear in my field of work is it costs too much. Eggs right now are $9.72 a carton in El Paso. I don't know how much they are everywhere else, but it's high. I mean, I didn't imagine the day that I'd say, well, back in my day, they were $1.88, and it's this year. So I think SNAP in particular, we see so much benefit in healthcare, in the ideas of being able to pull people and show them this resource that they're able to lean on, because there's not a lot of education on how to get on it, especially in my community.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Caitlin, we want to close with you. Thank you for your service and for sharing your story. We have heard about the struggles of veterans as they transition back to civilian life on many different fronts. As you relied on SNAP during your transition to civilian life, what challenges did you face in accessing food assistance, and how important was it for you as you got back on your feet?
I think my mindset was one of the biggest challenges that I had when accessing assistance programs. When my son was diagnosed with leukemia, we did not, I had a job, my husband had a job, but we could not have paid for the medical bills. There was no way. The amount that we would have had to pay would have bankrupted us. It was insane. And so the first program that we applied for was Medicaid. And then when my husband and I split up and I was trying to, make ends meet. I mean, he was able to provide some, but I wasn't able to. It was me sitting down and realizing that there wasn't any food in the fridge. And I'm really good at making things from scratch. Like I grew up in a very small town, and my mom always instilled the ability to make things from scratch in me. And even now today, that's what I do. Most of our stuff is made that way. I also find it to be cheaper. But I didn't know how I was going to give them breakfast the next day. And I am very big on making sure that they have like a solid breakfast every morning. And I had a whole breakdown in the middle of my living room, not knowing what I was going to do. And so I told myself, fine, I guess I have to apply for this program, terrified of what my family would say, terrified of what people back home would say if they ever found out. And so it was really my mindset. I knew how to get it. I actually lived in North Royalton, Ohio at the time, so very close to Cleveland. And so once I overcame that mindset and realized that this was not something that made me less of a person, this was not something that was a reflection of being a failure, this was something that I needed. I needed it to make sure that they were fed and they were healthy and they were happy and that I was healthy. And I think that's something that everyone could benefit from, is just knowing that it's not there because you failed. You didn't fail. It's there to help you through a hard time, because we all have hard times. And none of us know when it's going to happen. Like I said, I got a job right after. I was doing very well right after. But we never know when something like sickness is going to hit, or we're going to lose a job, or anything along those lines. And so helping to change that stigma, helping to change that mindset, so anyone that is in need understands that this is a program I can access. I can help feed myself. I can help feed my children. I can help feed my other family members. I need this. So I think it's really just the stigma and the mindset that needs to be changed more than anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Brown. Thank you, Caitlin, Cindy, and Aaron, for sharing your very powerful stories and highlighting the vital role food assistance plays in people's lives. I also want to thank Stacy and Tom for your advocacy and invaluable expertise in the fight against hunger. It's clear that SNAP food benefits are a lifeline for many families. We must do all we can to guarantee that more than 40 million Americans who count on SNAP can continue receiving these benefits. The House Republicans' budget proposal to cut as much as $230 billion from SNAP is a five-alarm fire. And yet Donald Trump himself is cheerleading for this extreme plan. He wants Republicans to get it done. 99% of the House Republicans have already voted for this extreme proposal. Why are Republicans trying to take food off the plates of kids, families, seniors, and veterans? It's the same reason why they're trying to take health care for tens of millions of Americans by cutting Medicaid. They want to take from you to give huge tax breaks to the billionaire donors like Elon Musk. Let me be clear. Democrats will never, ever support letting Americans go hungry or strip away health care to reward the wealthy and well-connected. We are doing everything in our power to fight this Republican scheme, and we will never, ever stop fighting to protect the American people. I want to thank you all so very much again and thank my colleagues. This hearing stands adjourned, but our work will continue. Thank you.
I'm
I'm your service.
Okay, good afternoon.